The dream of forever. There was a time when the wild felt endless. Forests stretched beyond imagination, oceans pulsed with life from horizon to horizon, and herds of animals moved like living rivers across continents. But that time is fading. Every year, millions of acres disappear under concrete and steel. Migration routes are sliced apart by highways. Ecosystems that once operated in perfect, ancient balance now struggle to survive inside invisible boundaries drawn by humans. And as the world changes faster than ever before, a bold and almost unbelievable idea has begun to take shape, a plan so ambitious that many call it impossible. A plan to create an endless animal habitat. This is not about building another zoo. It is not about fences, cages, or artificial enclosures disguised with painted backdrops. It is about designing a living, breathing ecosystem so vast, so interconnected, that animals can roam without ever reaching a boundary. A habitat without visible limits. A sanctuary that functions not as an exhibit, but as a self-sustaining wilderness engineered with science, powered by technology, and protected by global cooperation. It sounds like science fiction. But for a growing number of scientists, conservationists, engineers, and visionaries, it is becoming a serious mission. The idea
influx
began
from Mexico
quietly,
to the U.S. has
inside
increased by
research labs
15%.
and
That's aligning
conservation
with the economic
conferences
model.
where
Overlay the
uncomfortable
2022
truths were
data laying
impossible
now.
to
The trend is
ignore.
consistent across 5
The
years.
planet
Good.
is
Note
losing
the clusters in the
biodiversity
Midwest.
at a rate faster than at any time in human history. Entire species vanish before we even discover them. Traditional conservation strategies, isolated national parks surrounded by urban expansion, are no longer enough. Animals do not recognize political borders. They migrate, they hunt, they adapt. When their paths are cut off, their populations collapse. The solution, some experts argue, is not smaller protected zones. It is bigger thinking, much bigger.
A
Imagine
trophic cascade
continuous
begins when an
corridor of
apex
protected
predator is
land stretching
reintroduced.
across
This causes
countries,
herbivore populations
forests
to
linked to
decline. As a result,
grasslands,
vegetation
wetlands
can recover
flowing
and
into
expand.
river
This restores
systems,
balance across
deserts
the entire
connected through
ecosystem.
carefully managed
This is
ecological
Yellowstone, a
bridges.
vital sanctuary.
Imagine
But its
artificial
true power
intelligence
lies in
monitoring
connection.
animal health in
Vast
real time,
corridors link it to a
satellite systems
continental web
tracking
of life,
migration patterns,
a network that
drones
must
planting
endure.
trees
The
in
elevation
deforested
data shows
areas
we're clear
before
for the
damage
migration
becomes
paths.
permanent.
Good, let's increase the
Imagine
foliage density here to
climate-controlled
40%.
microzones
Done.
that
That boosts the
protect
connectivity
vulnerable
index to
species from
92%.
extreme
Excellent. This will be a
temperature
game
shifts.
changer for the ecosystem.
Imagine an ecosystem designed not to control nature, but to support it endlessly.
Great operator, lift
This
it higher.
ambitious plan rests on one radical
Careful with the
principle.
plants, don't crush the
Connectivity
roots.
equals survival. In nature, isolation is death. Genetic diversity depends on movement. Predators regulate prey populations. Pollinators sustain plant life. Remove one link, and the entire chain weakens. The endless habitat concept is built around restoring these connections on a continental scale. Instead of scattered reserves, there would be ecological highways, wildlife corridors wide enough for entire herds to migrate safely, tunnels beneath highways, green bridges over railways, and marine protected routes in oceans where ships are rerouted to avoid disrupting breeding grounds. Critics call it unrealistic. They point to political conflicts, funding challenges, and land ownership disputes. They argue that humanity struggles to cooperate on climate change. How could it possibly unite to redesign the planet's ecosystems? But supporters counter with a powerful truth. We already reshape the Earth every day. We build megacities. We reroute rivers. We construct highways that
Positioning
stretch for
first
thousands
sensor on
of
the reef.
miles. If humanity has the
Secure.
power to alter landscapes for
Moving
profit,
to the next
it also
site.
has the power to restore
Ready
them
when
for
you are.
survival. At the heart of this movement is a growing understanding that conservation cannot remain defensive. It must become proactive. Instead of simply protecting what remains, we must rebuild what has been fragmented. Some pilot projects are already hinting at what is possible. In regions where wildlife corridors have been introduced, animal populations have rebounded dramatically. Predators have returned. Vegetation has regenerated. Rivers have stabilized. These successes are small, but they prove that when space is restored, nature responds. The Endless Habitat Plan goes further. It proposes integrating human communities into the solution rather than excluding them. Local populations would become ecological guardians, supported by sustainable economic models like ecotourism, regenerative agriculture, and green infrastructure employment. Instead
These
of
lands are
choosing
our
between
heritage and a
development
vital
and
corridor for
conservation,
wildlife.
communities would
Protecting this
benefit
habitat
directly
is
from
essential for the
protecting
animals and
biodiversity.
our future.
The
We must
habitat
ensure
would
these
not
paths
exist
remain
apart
open
from
and protected.
civilization.
Colleagues, the
It would
biodiversity
coexist with
crisis
it,
demands
intelligently
immediate global
designed to
action.
reduce
I agree.
conflict
We
between
must include
wildlife
strong
and
enforcement
people.
for developing nations.
Technology
Enforcement is key,
plays a
but we need
crucial
economic
role.
impact studies first.
Advanced
Agreed. Let's
mapping
proceed with the
systems
studies.
analyze
The Iron
terrain
Curtain
to
once
identify
divided Europe with
optimal
fences and
corridor
watchtowers.
routes.
Over time,
Machine
nature
learning
reclaimed
models
these lands,
predict
turning
how
barriers
species
into a
will shift
lifeline for
ranges under
wildlife. Today, the
climate
European
change,
Greenbelt
allowing
symbolizes
planners to
unity and the healing
future-proof
power of
habitats.
nature.
Renewable energy grids power monitoring stations deep inside wilderness zones without pollution. Water recycling systems ensure wetlands remain stable during drought cycles. It is conservation upgraded for the 21st century, data-driven, adaptive, and resilient. But perhaps the most powerful element of this plan is psychological.
This marginal land
It
is
challenges
perfect for
humanity
pollinator
to rethink
pathways
its relationship
Right.
with the
The
wild.
wildflowers will
For
stabilize the
centuries,
soil.
we viewed
And
nature
attract
as
bees and
something to
butterflies.
conquer.
Exactly.
Then
We're
we
bringing
tried
this
to
land back
preserve
to life.
fragments of it behind barriers. The endless habitat concept suggests something more revolutionary: partnership. Not domination, not isolation, cooperation.
Regenerative
Picture
agriculture
standing at
rebuilds
the
soil
edge of a
ecosystems
vast
by using
landscape
cover crops
where
and crop
forests
rotation.
merge
This creates
seamlessly
rich,
into
living
open
soil teeming with
plains.
beneficial life like earthworms.
In the
Mineral disturbing in soil
distance,
structure
the
and
herd
health.
moves
This practice
freely,
promotes
unaware
biodiversity
of
and sustainable
invisible
food
borders
production.
once drawn
A
by
controlled
humans.
burn safely mimics
Predators
nature's fire
track their prey
cycles.
as they have
Ignition
for thousands
complete.
of
Fire
years.
spreading as planned.
Above, migratory
This reduces
birds follow
fuel,
ancient
promoting a
pathways
healthier
restored
forest.
after decades of interruption. Beneath the soil, roots intertwine in a complex underground network, exchanging nutrients in silence. This is not nostalgia, it is a blueprint. The scale of the project is staggering. It would require international treaties, billions in funding, advanced ecological modeling, and decades of commitment. It would demand compromise from industries accustomed to expansion. It would challenge political systems built on short-term goals. But history shows that humanity is capable of monumental achievements when driven by necessity. We built global communication networks. We decoded the human genome. We reached space. Now, the challenge is not escaping Earth, it is repairing it. And as climate instability intensifies, the urgency grows. Rising temperatures shift ecosystems northward and upward.
As night
Species
falls,
that
the city
cannot
dims its
migrate
lights to
fast
protect
enough
avian
face
highways,
extinction.
the invisible
An
migration
endless
routes birds
habitat
use
would
to navigate
function
the
like a
skies.
dynamic lifeline,
This simple act
allowing
reduces
animals
collisions,
to move
allowing birds to
naturally
fly
as
safely
conditions
onward.
change.
The models show
Instead of
ecosystem collapse
trapping
could hit global
wildlife in
GDP by
shrinking
10%.
pockets of
That's a
suitable
$20
land,
trillion
it would
hit,
give them options,
uninsurable.
Exactly,
space to
and tipping
adapt,
points make it
space to
non-linear.
survive.
We must
Some
reprice
call
these
it
risks
the
now.
largest conservation project ever imagined. Others call it humanity's final chance to restore balance before tipping points become irreversible. Either way, the conversation has begun.
We are the youth
Architects,
demanding habitat
ecologists,
connectivity now.
governments,
Fragment
and
habitats are a
indigenous
death
leaders
sentence for
sitting at the
species.
same
We need
table,
wildlife
asking
corridors
an
to restore
extraordinary
ecosystems.
question. What if we stopped thinking in terms of borders and started thinking in terms of ecosystems? Because, in the end, this plan is not only about animals. It is about air, water, soil, and stability. Healthy ecosystems regulate climate, prevent floods, pollinate crops, and support life in ways we often overlook. Protecting them is not charity. It is survival strategy. The dream of forever may sound impossible, but every great transformation in history began as an ambitious idea dismissed by skeptics. The endless animal habitat is more than a project. It is a vision of coexistence on a planetary scale. A future where humanity does not stand apart from nature, but within it, responsibly. The dream was bold. The vision was breathtaking. But dreams alone do not reshape continents. If an endless animal habitat was ever going
Our
to
AI
move
model
beyond
predicts
sketches
species
and
survival based on
simulations,
habitat
it would
connectivity.
require something
By
far
expanding
more
this corridor,
difficult
we
than
can boost survival
imagination.
rates
It would
significantly.
require
The
engineering
simulation
on a
confirms an
planetary scale.
85% survival probability.
Designing an endless habitat does not mean creating infinite land. It means removing the barriers that make the natural world feel small. It means stitching fragmented ecosystems back together so seamlessly that wildlife can move as if those fractures never existed. And to do that, planners had to confront a hard reality. The modern world is built on division. Roads divide forests, cities divide migration routes, farms divide grasslands, shipping lanes divide oceans. To engineer the infinite wild, humanity must redesign the way it builds. The first phase of the plan begins with mapping. Not ordinary mapping, but hyper-detailed ecological cartography powered by satellite constellations and AI-driven terrain analysis. Every forest patch, river bend, mountain pass, and desert corridor is scanned. Scientists analyze decades of migration data, overlaying it with climate projections that predict how ecosystems will shift over the next 50 to 100 years. Because building for today is not enough. The habitat must function for tomorrow's climate. In places like Yellowstone National Park, researchers have already seen what happens when space is restored. When wolves were reintroduced in the 1990s, the ecosystem didn't just change, it transformed. Elk behavior shifted, vegetation recovered, riverbanks stabilized, biodiversity increased. The lesson was powerful. Ecosystems are not random collections of species. They are living systems shaped by movement and balance. Remove barriers, and nature recalibrates. But Yellowstone is an island of protection surrounded by development. The endless habitat concept asks a bigger question. What if these islands were connected? What if Yellowstone linked seamlessly with Canadian wilderness to the north and protected corridors?
The influx from
stretching
Mexico to
southward?
the U.S. has increased by
What if
15%.
animals
That's
could
aligning
migrate
with the
hundreds,
economic model.
even
Overlay the
thousands
2022
of
data
miles
layering
without
now. Trend is
encountering a
consistent
dead
across
end?
5 years. Good.
To
Note the
achieve
clusters in
this,
the Midwest.
engineers and ecologists collaborate in ways rarely seen before. Wildlife overpasses, wide, vegetated bridges crossing highways, are expanded from experimental projects into continental networks. Tunnels beneath railways are designed specifically for large mammals. Urban planners integrate green arteries into city layouts, corridors of native vegetation that allow birds, insects, and small mammals safe passage through dense populations. The goal is not to remove infrastructure,
A
it is
trophic
to weave
cascade
nature
begins
through
when an
it.
apex predator is
In marine
reintroduced. This causes
environments,
herbivore
the challenge
populations to
grows even
decline.
more
As a result,
complex.
vegetation can recover
Oceans
and
appear
expand.
limitless,
This restores balance
yet
across
they are
the entire
increasingly
ecosystem.
segmented by fishing
This is
zones,
Yellowstone, a
shipping
vital
routes, and
sanctuary,
territorial
but its
waters.
true power lies in
In
connection.
regions like the Great
Vast
Barrier
corridors
Reef,
link it to a
warming waters
continental
threaten
web of
coral
life,
ecosystems
a
that
network
support
that must
thousands of
endure.
species.
The elevation data shows
The
we're clear
endless
for the
habitat
migration
plan
paths.
introduces
Good,
adaptive
let's increase the
marine
foliage
corridors,
density here to
protected
40%.
pathways
Done.
where
That boosts the
industrial
connectivity index to
activity is
92%.
restricted during
This will be a
breeding
game changer
seasons.
for the
Guided
ecosystem.
by real-time data from underwater sensors. Autonomous drones patrol
Crane
for
operator,
illegal
lift it
fishing,
higher.
while AI models forecast
Careful
bleaching
with the
events
plants,
before
don't
they
crush
peak.
the roots.
Technology is not replacing conservation, it is amplifying it. Solar-powered monitoring towers deep inside wilderness areas track animal populations using non-invasive imaging systems. Acoustic sensors record biodiversity through soundscapes, detecting subtle ecosystem shifts long before visible damage occurs. Machine learning algorithms analyze patterns humans would never notice: slight changes in migration timing, unexpected predator-prey ratios, temperature anomalies that signal stress. But technology alone cannot solve the political dimension. An endless habitat cannot stop at national borders. It must cross them. That requires unprecedented international cooperation. In some regions, decades-old territorial disputes complicate land use agreements. Governments must negotiate shared management strategies. Indigenous communities, whose ancestral lands often overlap with proposed corridors, must be central partners, not afterthoughts. There are promising
Positioning
precedents.
first sensor on the
European
reef.
Green Belt,
Copy.
stretching
Secure.
along the former Iron Curtain, has
Moving to the
evolved
next
into
site.
one of the continent's most
Ready when you
significant
are.
ecological networks. In Africa, transfrontier conservation areas allow wildlife to roam across multiple countries. These projects prove that collaboration is possible, but scaling them to a global level will test diplomacy like never before. Funding is another monumental challenge. Restoring and protecting vast territories demands billions of dollars. Yet supporters argue that the investment pays for itself. Healthy ecosystems reduce disaster costs by preventing floods and stabilizing soil. They support agriculture through pollination. They attract ecotourism. They provide climate regulation services worth trillions annually. The endless habitat is not an expense, it is infrastructure for survival. Critics remain cautious. What if corridors unintentionally spread disease? What if predators move closer to populated areas? What if climate
These lands are our
projections prove
heritage and a
inaccurate?
vital corridor for
These
wildlife.
concerns are not
Protecting this
dismissed.
habitat is
They are
essential for the
integrated into the
animals
design.
and our future.
Buffer
We must
zones
ensure these
reduce
paths
human
remain open
wildlife
and
conflict.
protected.
Colleagues, the
Veterinary
biodiversity
monitoring
crisis
systems
demands
detect
immediate
outbreaks
global
early.
action.
I agree.
Habitat
We must
routes are
include strong
flexible,
enforcement for
capable
developing
of
nations.
adjustment as
Enforcement
new
is
data
key, but we need
emerges.
economic impact studies
Unlike
first. Agreed.
static
Let's proceed with the
reserves,
studies.
the
The Iron
endless
Curtain once
habitat is
divided
adapted
Europe
by
with fences
design.
and watchtowers.
Perhaps
Over
the
time,
most
nature reclaimed
revolutionary
these lands,
engineering
turning barriers
element
into a
lies
lifeline for
underground.
wildlife. Today, the
Soil
European Greenbelt
regeneration
symbolizes
programs
unity and the
rebuild
healing
degraded
power of
land
nature.
using regenerative agriculture techniques. Microbial ecosystems are restored to increase carbon sequestration. Rewilding initiatives reintroduce keystone species to rebalance trophic systems. In some experimental zones, controlled burns mimic natural fire cycles, preventing catastrophic wildfires while stimulating plant diversity. The
This
ambition
marginal
does
land
not
is
stop
perfect
at
for
land and
pollinator
sea.
pathways.
Airspace
Right.
becomes
The
part
wildflowers
of the
will
equation.
stabilize the soil.
Migratory birds
And attract
face
bees and
hazards from
butterflies.
skyscrapers
Exactly,
and
we're
wind
bringing this
turbines
land back
placed
to
along
life.
flight paths. Using radar tracking and satellite telemetry, planners design avian highways, routes where light pollution is minimized and structures are modified to reduce
Regenerative
collision
agriculture
risks.
rebuilds soil ecosystems by
Wind
using
farms
cover crops and
adjust
crop
turbine
rotation.
speeds
This creates
during
rich,
peak
living soil
migration
teeming with
hours.
beneficial life like
It is
earthworms, minimal
precision
disturbing in soil structure and health. This practice
As the
promotes
engineering
biodiversity and
phase
sustainable food
unfolds,
production.
Something
A controlled
unexpected
burn
happens.
safely mimics nature's
Communities
fire
once
cycles.
skeptical begin to
Ignition
see
complete.
opportunity.
Fire spreading as
Jobs
planned.
emerge in habitat
This
restoration,
reduces fuel, promoting a
renewable
healthier
energy
forest.
installation, ecological research, and sustainable tourism. Farmers receive incentives to convert marginal lands into pollinator corridors. Urban neighborhoods benefit from cooler temperatures as green infrastructure expands. The endless habitat becomes not just a conservation strategy, but an economic evolution. Still, the greatest obstacle may not be technical or financial. It may be psychological. For generations, development meant expansion into untouched land. Progress was measured by how much was built, not how much was restored. The endless habitat demands a shift in values. It asks humanity to measure success not by conquest, but by balance. In high-level summits, world leaders debate timelines. Scientists present climate urgency data that grows more alarming each year. Youth activists demand acceleration.
As night falls, the
Insurance
city dims
companies
its lights
warn
to
of
protect
rising
avian
disaster
highways,
payouts
the invisible
linked to
migration routes
ecosystem
birds
collapse.
use to navigate the
The
skies.
message converges
This
from
simple
all
act
sides.
reduces collisions, allowing birds to
Fragmentation
fly
is no
safely
longer
onward.
sustainable.
The models show
Pilot
ecosystem collapse
corridors
could hit
begin
global
linking
GDP by
regions once
10%. That's a
considered
$20 trillion
irreversibly
hit,
In
uninsurable.
areas
Exactly,
where
and
highways
tipping
once
points make it
caused daily
nonlinear.
wildlife
We must
fatalities,
reprice these risks
overpasses
now.
bloom with native vegetation. Motion-triggered cameras capture images of animals crossing safely for the first time in decades. Rivers once constrained by concrete channels
We are the youth
restored to
demanding
natural
habitat
flow
connectivity
patterns,
now.
revitalizing
Fragment
wetlands
habitats are a
downstream.
death sentence for species.
Momentum
We need
builds,
wildlife corridors
and
to
yet,
restore
The
ecosystems.
architects of the infinite wild understand something critical. This project will never truly be finished. An endless habitat is not a static creation. It is a living system that must evolve continuously alongside climate, species adaptation, and human development. Its success depends on constant monitoring, ongoing cooperation, and generational commitment. Because endless does not mean infinite space. It means infinite responsibility. As construction expands and agreements solidify, one truth becomes clear: humanity stands at a crossroads. One path continues fragmentation, shrinking habitats into isolated pockets until ecosystems collapse under pressure. The other path commits to reconnection on a scale never attempted before. Engineering the infinite wild is not just about saving animals. It is about stabilizing the
Our AI
biosphere
model
that
predicts
sustains
species
human
survival based on
civilization.
habitat connectivity.
It is about
By
acknowledging
expanding
that
this
survival
corridor,
is
we can boost
interconnected.
survival rates
That
significantly.
forests
The
regulate
simulation
rainfall,
confirms an
that
85%.
oceans regulate temperature,
It's so nice
that
and cool under
biodiversity
these
strengthens
trees.
resilience.
Yes, this
the
pocket
endless
park is a
habitat is no
lifesaver.
longer just a dream sketched
Definitely.
in research papers.
I could sit here all
It is becoming blueprints, corridors, treaties, restoration zones, and measurable impact. It is fragile, ambitious, and imperfect. But it is moving forward. And as cranes lift bridge segments into place above highways, as drones scatter native seeds across barren land, as satellites map migration routes in real time, a new possibility emerges. Not a world divided by fences and borders, but a world stitched back together. And the question that once sounded impossible now feels urgent. If we can engineer cities that touch the sky, why can't we engineer a wilderness that never ends?